Not gonna lie, I was struggling on what I wanted to do for today's video because I have some different ideas, but those are for later on in the season. I was spitballing about what I should do with a friend, and he told me about this TikTok he saw where they took quarterbacks that were asked if they would rather cut, extend, or give the quarterback one more year. I really messed with the concept, so here we are. I have 10 quarterbacks in what I feel to be questionable situations with their respective teams, and I'm going to go over each one briefly and decide whether I would cut, extend, or give them one more year. Also, I will leave a link in the description to the TikTok in question so you can check it out for yourself. If you guys are new and you want to see videos like this in the future, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and also be sure to leave a comment down below giving me your feedback and what also you might want to see on the channel. With that said, let's get right into it. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Jared Goff. Goff has had a career resurgence in Detroit after being traded from the Rams for Matthew Stafford in 2021, and everyone expected Goff, who has been up and down his entire career without having consecutive seasons on an elite level, outside of 2018 and 2019 of course, to rot in Detroit, and I was one of them, quite honestly. I will say that he's made quite the career for himself since joining the Lions, and they are currently 9-4. Which is good enough for first in the NFC North and third in the entire NFC. You can argue that Detroit just has a well put together team with a weak schedule that other quarterbacks would succeed just as much as Goff has, if not more. But the fact of the matter is that Goff has helped hold the fort down and has helped change the entire culture of Detroit Lions football. The only concerns at this point, in my opinion, for Goff are the playoffs because he hasn't played in them since the 2020 season, and his turnovers, which are tied second in the NFL since 2016. If he stinks it up in the playoffs this year, I would probably change my answer to one more year, but we here at Bears Lose Again like to try optimism sometimes, so I'm going to say extend until he gives you a reason not to. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Kirk Cousins. Right out the gate, I'm just going to say it. I'm giving Kirk Cousins one more year, but hear me out. After a long span of uncertainty at the quarterback position for Minnesota, Kirk Cousins gave the franchise some much-needed stability for the past 5.5 years. Cousins has provided some elite stats while throwing to insanely talented players such as Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, just to name a few. For the most part, Cousins has been consistent and effective. However, Cousins is going to be 36 years old by the time next season starts, and he'll be coming off of a torn Achilles, granted he doesn't have a long list of previous injuries. I also think you've seen just about the ceiling of how far a Kirk Cousins-led Vikings team can lead you. What I would do is prep a young quarterback to back him up for his season and then take the reins the following season. I would recommend drafting someone, as I think Josh Dobbs has very quickly unraveled after rave reviews the first 10 weeks into the season. I mean, you could very well go with Jaren Hall and see how that goes, and I wouldn't blame you for it, but my thought process is that Minnesota is more than likely not making the playoffs with a competitive wildcard race, and them struggling to even score 3 points in the game versus the Raiders this past Sunday doesn't make me think they'll even sniff the playoffs when it's all said and done. They'll have a decent pick to get a solid quarterback prospect. Which one? Beats me. I barely know shit about college ball, so it could be anyone. But yeah, I think you take that quarterback and you have him be mentored by Kirk for a season, but you'd have to re-sign for one more season anyways for this plan to work because his contract expires after this season. But yeah, long story short, I'm giving Kirk Cousins one more year. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Desmond Ridder. This is probably going to be the easiest cut of the entire video. I don't even think I have to go into the extreme detail as to why, but I will explain a little bit. I'm aware we're only in year 2 of the Desmond Ridder experience in Atlanta, but there's been no flash at all of Ridder being anything other than a backup in this league. With the talent he has to throw the ball to like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, or even Bijan Robinson, there's no excuse for him to be as ineffective as he's been. Honestly, there's no excuse for the Falcons to even be 6-7 right now. I give a lot of credit to the defense, which is currently ranked 10th as of the recording of this video. I can't put it all on Ridder, but Ridder hasn't helped his own case in the slightest. I put a lot of blame on Arthur Smith, as well as offensive coordinator Dave Ragone. I knew this regime was toast after this season, after I saw Bijan Robinson only play 1 snap in a game instead of being ruled out of the game with an illness, and then I saw Jonnu Smith try to throw a pass to the 3rd-string tight end, while Kyle Pitts, the 4th overall pick, the highest drafted tight end of all time, was blocking for him. This team still has a realistic chance to make the playoffs as a champion at the NFC South, by the way. I'm kind of hoping they make it because I like chaos, but I also like competent football, so I will not be rooting for them. Honestly, whoever wins that division isn't a competent team, so I win or lose either way. Like I said, this is the easiest cut of the entire video, but I'm sure he still has a future in the sport though. I heard the DC Defenders in the XFL need a quarterback, so maybe he can get a spot there. If not, I'm sure he can get his old job back. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Deshaun Watson. I personally consider Deshaun Watson to be one of the biggest flops contract-wise in NFL history. I'm well aware we're only 2 years into the Watson era in Cleveland, but for a person who got $230 million guaranteed, he is not close to played up to his contract. Cleveland's currently 8-5 and looks to be playoff bound, but it won't be because of Watson because he's out for the season. Watson has already missed a ton of his Browns tenure so far, whether it was because of serving a suspension like it was last season or because of injuries this season. As of this recording, the Browns have signed a 38-year-old Joe Flacco less than 3 weeks ago, who, in 2 games, has only 2 less touchdowns than Watson had in his first 6 games this season. In my opinion, the only way Deshaun Watson will be able to make up for his lack of production at this stage is to have a season like he had on the Texans. And I truly don't know for certain if that'll happen at this stage. That's why I would only give Watson 1 more year to see if he can tap into that next level. I would try to look for a trade partner. The tough part about that is that they'll have to give up a ton of value to even move Watson's massive contract. Part of me wonders if the reason why Watson's facing these injuries is because he's too tense. Personally, I think a massage to his shoulder would do him wonders. Extend, cut, or give 1 more year, Sam Howell. Sam Howell has probably been the most visible bright spot for the Commanders this season. Washington has been another team that has struggled with consistency at quarterback position for most of their franchise's history. They haven't had a quarterback start 10 plus games for 5 straight years since the 80s with Mark Rippon. I genuinely believe they have a shot at doing that with Sam Howell. He's currently on pace to end the season 2nd in Washington franchise history and most pass yards in a single season, and his first full season as a starter. For all the good he's done his fair share of bad as well. He has 16 turnovers as a whole this year, with 2 of them being lost fumbles. But if he can clean up the turnovers and Washington's able to properly build around him, he could be the guy that they've been waiting decades for. I would still like a larger sample size before declaring him the savior, so I will say to give him 1 more year. Extend, cut, or give 1 more year, Bryce Young. Bryce Young has not had the strongest rookie season by a long shot, but it's very hard to put the majority of the blame on him. Carolina's offense has not been up to par. To be fair, it shouldn't have been gassed up to the level it was at before the season started. He's also on the 2nd head coach of the season, as Frank Reich was rightfully fired midway through the season. That's not to say he's completely blameless, and he's yet to play to the level he was expected to play at as the first overall pick. In his last 4 games, 2 have had a completion percentage of under 50%, and he has only thrown 1 touchdown during that span. Carolina is averaging 9 points per game as well during this span, and only 15 per game this season alone, 3rd worst in the NFL. Despite how bad he and his team have performed, it's absolutely unfair to throw in the towel on this year's number 1 pick this early into his career. We've seen this in the past with players taking number 1 like Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Alex Smith, and others, where the quarterback is put in a crazy position and they can't figure it out in year 1. It's going to take a lot more than just him to steer the ship, and I fully expect Carolina to try to help him out. If he repeats what he did this year next season, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they were out on him. That's why I'm going to give Bryce Young 1 more year. I think the situation will be figured out, but it most certainly will be a process. If Bryce shows growth next season, which I think he will, he'll be fine. Maybe Carolina should have found a way to keep DJ Moore in that trade that they made with the Bears for the number 1 pick this year. But it's alright though, because surely they have their own pick and they'll take one of the premier wide receiver prospects in this year's draft, right? No? Wait, they don't have it? Oh. Extend, cut, or give 1 more year, Mac Jones. I made a video already about the whole situation regarding Mac Jones and the New England Patriots, which you can check out by either clicking the link in the description or waiting for the end screen at the end of this video. However, there have been some updates since I made that video. New England has officially benched Mac Jones in favor of Bailey Zappi, who, as of this recording, just defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football, where he threw 3 touchdowns in the first half alone and helped the Patriots score 20 plus points for the first time since October, and just the 3rd time this season to reach that mark. Based on this performance, I think it's safe to say the Mac Jones era in New England is officially over. Not that Mac Jones is a special talent in my eyes, but he deserves much better than what the Patriots have done to him. I do think he could be a starting caliber quarterback on a team, but part of me wonders if he's beyond repair. I've seen post-game pressers of him this season talking during one of the multiple times he was benched, and he just sounds broken. For his sake, as well as the organization, I would definitely cut Mac Jones. Extend, cut, or give 1 more year to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was as good as gone when he came to his NFL career before signing with the Buccaneers this past offseason. Everyone wrote him and the team off and expected Tampa Bay to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, myself included. But he's having his best season in years, where he's projected to have the most touchdowns in a single season for his career, as well as his most pass yards and highest passer rating since 2020. Tampa Bay is also 6-7 currently, which is good enough with tiebreakers and all to take the lead in the NFC South through Week 14. Meaning not only can they make the playoffs, but they can have home field advantage going into the wildcard game. I feel if you're either Todd Bowles or Jason Late, I think that's how you pronounce it, I don't know, sue me. You have quite the decision to make when it comes to either retaining Baker Mayfield for next season or taking a quarterback in one of the most stacked QB draft classes in recent history. Depending on how it goes during this final stretch of the season and potentially going into the playoffs, assuming it goes well, I would very much consider giving Baker 1 more season to prove himself. Regardless, you'd have a solid 28-year-old quarterback that can get the job done for now, and you can worry about filling other holes out on your team. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the more overhated quarterbacks in the NFL in recent years. Even though many believe it was the system, he was a capable starter in San Francisco and helped the Niners make it to the Super Bowl during his time as a starter, as well as multiple NFC Championship games. That said, he is certainly not a capable starter now. In the time he started for the Raiders this season before his injury, he looked fucking terrible. I will say that the roster itself is not good, and they still managed to go 3-3 with him and Josh McDaniels still as their head coach. But if there was any form of doubt that the Kyle Shanahan system in San Francisco benefited him to the max, this relatively small sample size kind of convinced me. I think he'll make a just fine backup, maybe even one of the better backups in the league, but he's absolute cooked product as a starter. I would for sure cut him, and I think the Raiders organization is already planning on doing so following this season. Extend, cut, or give one more year, Brock Purdy. And finally, we have Brock Purdy. Drafted with the last overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, Purdy turned heads at the end of last season, helping the Niners go 5-0 with more than solid stats to go with it. You can even argue that if Purdy didn't suffer that hand injury in the NFC Championship game versus the Eagles, the Niners would have made it to the Super Bowl that year, but I'm not going to touch that hot potato. He has followed up this season with a very impressive second year, and is currently in talks of winning the MVP award. Like I said when talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, Purdy is often discredited for being a part of the Kyle Shanahan system, where it's believed any quarterback can be immediately plugged in and thrive. The difference between Jimmy and Brock, though, is that Brock is doing it at a much higher level than Jimmy ever did, with the exact same talent, with the exception of Christian McCaffrey. You could say he's system-made, which he very well might be, but it's undeniable how impressive Purdy has been since entering the league, especially where he was drafted. I said this about a year and a half ago in a video talking about my 2021 NFL season award winners, where people were talking about how Cooper Kupp was a product of the McVay system, and that he and the historic season that he had just finished should be discounted or have an asterisk. To me, it shouldn't matter one way or the other if you are or aren't, because you're able to get the most out of that system, just like how the system can get the most out of you. You need to have some level of talent to make that work, and in my opinion, both Kupp and Purdy have maximized their systems to perfection. I would 100% extend Brock Purdy. But what do you think? Who would or wouldn't you extend, cut, or give one more year to? Let me know down in the comments if you think I missed anyone or if I missed on any takes, as well as if you have any feedback for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Peace out.